the smoke radio for the masses.
Headline edition, July 8, 1947. The Army Air Forces has announced that a flying disc has been found and is now in the possession of the Army.
If the game is rigged, change the game. Game changer.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world.
This is Fade to Black with your host, Jimmy Church, on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
I need your help to get to the year 1985.
You're listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oh, yeah, Fade to Black. Let's do this, man. Bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Tuesday, February 21st, 52 days into the new year, just 313 days left. And I would like to welcome everybody listening all around the world, all across the United States, hither and thither, to and fro, back and forth, up and down, east and west, north and south, far and near. This is Fade to Black. We are live from a bunker somewhere in downtown Burbank, California. For KJCR, the Game Changer Network, and KGRA, the Planet, I'm your host, Jimmy Church. What is cracking, everybody? Man. Got a good show tonight. Dr. Michael Salla is joining us to discuss exopolitics. Every angle tonight. Got some cool documents we're going to post. Antarctica, the world, NASA's big deal tomorrow and their press conference. More on that in just a bit. And then tomorrow night is Ouija night with Karen Dahlman. She's going to be here. Cannot wait for that. Thursday night's another Fader night with John Rappaport and his No More Fake Newsroom. The call-in number is 323-825-5045. We will squeeze in some phone calls tonight. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Twitter is at JChurchRadio. That's what you want to do. Oh, man. Somebody sent me an email today talking about the podcast and said in the email, I'm not making this up, and I hope that they're listening to this tomorrow on the podcast. Dude, is this show live or not, man? Do you actually tweet? Should I listen to the show live? Are these real callers? I was like, what? You subscribe to the podcast. And we talk about the show being live. It's a live show, man. The podcast comes out the day after the live show. So whoever sent me that email, I'm not going to say anything. Whoever sent it, just listen to me tomorrow, okay? When you listen to this. Dude, the show was the night before. Do you really tweet? Yeah. Follow us on Twitter, at JChurchRadio. It's going to be another, oh, man, is that... Oh, that's the big four, isn't it? That's Metallica and Megadeth and Anthrax. Who else was on that? It was the big four. Who am I leaving out? Oh, man, I'm leaving somebody out, and I feel bad. The big four. Anyway, that's a pretty good little gif going on there. All right, where am I? The Sandbox is hashtag F2B in Twitter, right? Twitter. It's live. Yeah, try to tweet the show. Well, you guys tweet, I guess, all day long in the Sandbox, and that's pretty cool. But for somebody to go, do you guys really tweet? Man, dude, as you listen to me tomorrow, because today is now. This is the now. But tomorrow in the future, when you're listening to me tomorrow, plan on listening to the show at 7 p.m. Pacific time live. Go to the website, jimmychurchradio.com. Just go somewhere. Go to one of the networks. Go to KGRA. Go somewhere and listen to the show live. All right. And then go check out Twitter. Go check out and see what's happening, man. All right. Check out all of our sponsors, by the way. The banners are over at jimmychurchradio.com. Use the promo codes right there that are in the banners for discounts, free shipping, because you're a fade or not. Help support the show. Also, subscribe to that podcast that I was just talking about. We have over 600 archive shows. Custom apps, Apple and Android. Just go to iTunes, go to the Google Store, download, do it, $2 a month. And then just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the podcast banner. Everything will happen for you. It's wonderful. All right. Contact in the Desert's coming up May 19th through the 22nd. Our guest tonight, just like Melinda Leslie from last night, will be at Joshua Tree, California for Contact in the Desert. Tickets and info over at jimmychurchradio.com. Speakers do include Michael Salla tonight, George Norrie, Graham Hancock, Jacques Vallée, Robert Bivol, Robert Schock, David Wilcock, Corey Good, Jim Mars, Giorgio Tsoukalos, Richard Dolan, Andrew Collins. I can't even believe when Andrew Collins, this is what I'm going to do. When Andrew comes on the show, right, when we broadcast from there, I'm going to make him say Gobekli Tepe 15 times. 15 Gobekli Tepes come out of Andrew Collins. Linda Moulton Howe, Whitley Strieber, David Sereda. It's just going to be an amazing event. Now, we are giving away passes, okay? It's very simple. Go to jimmychurchradio.com. Click on the contest banner. Go and enter. There is one entry per person. Just go to our website and click on the contest banner. It's all you got to do. The pass is non-transferable, folks. So if you win a pass and cannot attend, let us know. And then we will draw another name. All right? Every year. Last year, the year before that, we gave away like 30 full-on weekend passes. All right? And for anybody that couldn't attend, that did go and win, and we congratulated them, they let us know, and we were able to draw another name and just do that. But please go and enter. You're not going to win if you don't enter. It's that simple. Thank you, and good luck to all of you Fadernauts. And let's all get together out at Contact in the Desert. Let's get this show cracking. Big news today here. Now, I know that I don't do sports anymore. I don't do sports anymore, right? But I do live in Los Angeles, California. And some of the biggest news of the last 20 years, if ever, went down earlier today here in Los Angeles. That's right. Magic Johnson is now the Lakers' president of basketball operations. Huge news. This is real. Jeannie Buss, the governor, by the way, of the Lakers, that's her job title, the governor, Jerry Buss's daughter, Jeannie Buss, fired her brother today, Jim Buss. He's still like CEO or president or whatever, but he's no longer has anything to do with the team. He's just going to go out there and do his thing. But he got fired today by his sister, and they also fired longtime GM Mitch Kupchak. And Mitch Kupchak probably could have ran for mayor here in Los Angeles and won. He's a much-loved guy. I'm not sure what's going on, but I can't believe it. Jim Buss and Mitch Kupchak are out. It was a coup d'etat. Jeannie Buss brought in Magic Johnson today. I got to tell you, that's like bigger news than the rain that has been falling here for 6 months. All right. Also announced yesterday, NASA is to host a news conference. Now, the press release that went out is NASA to host a press conference on discovery beyond our solar system. Press conference is going to be tomorrow. It's going to be at 1 p.m. Eastern, okay? And they are to present new findings on planets that orbit stars other than our own. The event's going to air live on NASA television and the agency's website. Details of the findings are embargoed by the journal Nature until 1 p.m. Very interesting. Now, is this going to be all ado about nothing? Don't know. Remember the big Mars, the Life on Mars conference they had about 6 months ago, right? Well, yeah, there might be some water. You remember that? Okay, it could be that. I'm not sure. But it's a big announcement, and they're going to do it tomorrow. So I'm going to see if I can call in to the news conference and post a question. What do you guys think? All right. Now, if I do pull that off, I'm going to pop this off on Twitter right now. What's the question that you would want me to ask NASA tomorrow? Don't give me any BS. Don't. Are you guys lying to us? Are you guys CGIing all of your? I don't want to hear that. Is the Earth flat and you're lying to? No, that's not what I'm talking about. Okay, what is the question that I should ask NASA tomorrow? So think about that. Pop it off in Twitter. NASA rocks, moon rocks too. Yeah, that's funny. IPD. That's actually pretty good. Gotta dig that. All right. Happy birthday to today. Our dead guys' birthdays are the one and onlys, Alan Rickman and Nina Simone. Happy birthday. On this day in history, 1994. CIA operative Aldrich Ames is arrested for selling secrets to the Soviet Union. Ames had access to names and identities of all U.S. spies in Russia, and by becoming a double agent, he was directly responsible for jeopardizing the lives of CIA agents working in the Eastern Bloc. At least 10 men were killed after Ames revealed their identities, and the rest of them all got sent to Russian gulags. Happened on this day in 1994. Remember that? The bridge, right? You remember he was putting the signs, and he would mark the thing in the park and walk down and put the stuff underneath the bridge. Got caught. Yeah. Fader fact. This is real. Salvador Dali made a painting for the prisoners at Rikers Island, the jail in Manhattan, right? In New York. And the painting hung in the prison dining room for 15 years, right? In 2003, the painting was stolen by 4 guards. The 4 guards replaced it with a copy. And somebody walked by and was like, man, that doesn't look quite right. They're just kind of looking at it. 4 guards stole it. Prisoners let it hang there for 15 years. The guards apparently, I went and checked the story out too. It's pretty incredible. They thought that they could sell it for $1 million. $1 million. Yeah. Tonight, Michael Salla joins us. We're going to discuss exopolitics, all sides, all angles. We've got so much to discuss with Michael, and it's going to be one of those conversations. So buckle up, get ready. He has just sent us some documents that he has just got. We're going to post those too as well and discuss those. It's going to be a great night on the show. Tomorrow night's Ouija night with Karen Dahlman. Do not miss that. Been waiting for a Ouija night here. Thursday night's another Fader night with John Rappaport. Friday, I'm over at Coast to Coast with Corey Good. Saturday, I can't announce Saturday until Thursday. But Thursday, I'll announce Saturday. Fair enough? All right. Well, curious thing happened over the last 72 hours. And I want to discuss this with you. I'm a little twisted at the moment. I see that you guys dig the Magic Johnson. That's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. Who was the, before I get into this, who was the big 4 again? It was Metallica, Megadeth, Slayer, and Anthrax. That was it. All right, I beat you guys to it. You guys didn't even post it. Lame. Riots broke out in a predominantly immigrant neighborhood of Stockholm last night during the show. And residents clashed with police officers and set vehicles on fire. And that was all according to the Swedish police yesterday. Officers were forced to call in reinforcements when a crowd began to gather in a suburb of Rinkeby during the arrest of a suspect, according to a statement from Stockholm police. Now, Stockholm Regional Police Chief Ulf Johansson, Ulf, said that the clashes may have been a result of their increased pressure on criminals in the area. The clashes came after our president, Donald Trump, suggested that immigrants in Sweden were to blame for an increase in crime across the country. an announcement he made before the riots broke out. Now listen to me. And listen very closely to what I'm about to say. Now, although Twitter lit up after Trump said this, lit up. What are you talking about, right? Questioning him on what he was talking about, and because at the time there was nothing going on in Sweden, there was no terrorist activity that nobody knew, right? And then, well, either dude has a serious precog ability or he knew something. Now, just listen. This isn't a political rant. This is a conspiracy thing. There's something going on. And as you know, I am the last guy, to yell false flag. I always wait for the evidence to come in. I wait for that first. But you have to ask yourself, how did he know this? And what's more important here, now we have the media lighting up around the world. Riots in Sweden. Doesn't matter where you just go to, any site, anywhere, and any news outlet. Riots in Sweden. Immigration is bad, right? Very strange coincidence, don't you think? Very strange timing. Last night in Rinkeby, a suburb of Stockholm, several people threw stones at police, striking one officer in the arm. As the situation escalated, police fired warning shots to disperse the crowd, and one shot at a rioter. More riots erupted later yesterday in the evening, causing damage to storefronts and, well, looting, right? There was some flamage, there were some fires, and 10 cars had been torched. Images all around the media today, all over the place, proudly displaying these torched cars. Now, here's the thing. Everyone seemed to be quick in response to the apparent blunder, right? Trump mentions this, and the news reports went flying around for the last 24 hours about flaming automobiles. I was like, wait a minute, what's going on here? I don't understand. Nobody, not one journalist, alt-right, alt-left, fringe, conspiracy, mainstream, or other outlets have mentioned the glaring question. How did Trump know? How did he know? He said, and I'm quoting here, I saw the speech live. He said, we've got to keep our country safe. You look at what's happening in Germany. You look at what's happening last night in Sweden, end quote. Now, stop the bus here. There is something much deeper going on. Trump took to his Twitter account on Sunday evening to explain that he was referring to a Tucker Carlson segment that appeared on Fox News on Friday evening. In that segment, Carlson interviewed right-wing filmmaker Amy Horowitz, who had recently made a documentary about Sweden's refugee policy. Okay, no biggie. The segment did not contain any breaking news. Okay? And then it was his Twitter post. And this is something's going on here. His direct Twitter post said, and I'm quoting here, my statement as to what's happening in Sweden was in reference to a story that was broadcast on Fox News concerning immigrants in Sweden. I'm just like, what? Dude, maybe. Sure. Okay. It's a nice dance, and I get it. I read the tweet. I heard what you said. But in your speech, you yelled, look at what's happening last night in Sweden. And you yelled this. Freaked everybody out. Everybody had to go and check the news wire. What happened? You know, what's going on? Another nightclub get raided by ISIS? What's going on? What he didn't say was, last night I saw something on TV about Sweden that kind of tripped me out. Now, if he would have said that, we move on. But that doesn't stop what happened next. So this is how my brain works. Just go with me on this. And again, this is not a Trump thing, man. This is a conspiracy false flag thing. Hear me out. If Trump doesn't mention Sweden, does the riot still happen? Think about that. How about this? If Trump doesn't mention Sweden, does the media still report on the Swedish unrest that followed the next day? Think about that. By mentioning Sweden, did he fan the flames in Sweden with the issues that are already there? How about this one? Does the unrest in Sweden have anything to do at all with immigrants or refugees? Where did the unrest come from? Or even crazier still, was the rioting in Sweden planned? Was it a false flag? Even crazier still, on top of that, was it planned for a later date? But because Trump slipped up in his speech, they went ahead with the violence the next day. Now, that's how my brain works. That one little slip up, you can deduce any of these in a row. Even all of these are important questions to be asking, but nobody is. And again, I'm not big on false flags. It's not everything that is wrong or violent in the world is a false flag. But this just seems a little too strange. And for something that was so out of control just 20 or 72 hours ago, it seems to have died a quick death on Twitter and the news cycle. Any news cycle, by the way, all of them. Remember this. This show is never about politics. And it's not right now. It's not. It's about the conspiracy. And that's what I'm asking you, all of you, is to listen, to observe, and to make up your own mind. That's it. What this does remind me of, and this is what stirred all of these thoughts, it reminds me of 1984 and Winston Smith. His job was to rewrite past newspaper articles. That was his gig. He got up in the morning, he was told what to do, he would go back, pull the newspaper articles, and rewrite them and destroy the documents of the previous. That was his gig. He had to do it so that the historical record always supports the party line, making corrections, fixing misquotations, and creating forgeries and falsifications. A large part of the ministry also actively destroys all documents that would not have been edited and do not contain the revisions. In this way, no proof exists that the government is lying. And that's what I want to drive home here. Because when I heard Trump live, and then I read his response, which was trying to correct his mistake, and then Sweden happens, and then the media and the Twitterverse blows up and shuts down at the same time, it just makes you wonder, doesn't it? I don't know. I want all of you, all of us, to keep our guard up and our eyes and ears open. We will win this game. But the Ministry of Truth is messing with us. And it just happened 4 days in a row. Boom, 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 boom. Cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect, cause and effect. Misquoting, mistweeting, misdirection. But what doesn't change here is Sweden actually happened. And I'll say it again. Either he has precog abilities that are second to none, or he knew something. Think about that for a second. I can't make it any more clear. I can't. And you got to love it. You got to love it. What I find so interesting here is they are making us figure out the game very easy. Very easy. It used to be so difficult to get these points across. So difficult to put the puzzle pieces together. And then this goes down like this. I'm just like kicking back going, this is too easy, man. This is fish in a barrel. This is too easy. Doesn't everybody else get it? And then when I saw nobody in the media respond back with any of the questions that I listed here, any one of them, nobody. It's shut down. Not the alt-right, the alt-left, the conspiracy, the crazy website. Nobody. I just don't get it. So please, keep your eyes and ears open. We will win this game. Our guest tonight, Dr. Michael Salla. We are going to fully go through what is going on in Antarctica. We have some documents that we're going to post here on Twitter. I need all of you to follow through that. We just got these from Michael. He got the documents last month, and these are some of them. Okay, more on this to follow, but it's going to be one of those shows. I had said to Michael earlier, and we'll probably repeat this, but one of the things, not only at Conscious Life, but I did this over at UPARS with Rita and at Conscious Life and with guests, is all I ask is, do you guys want to hear about Antarctica? And the room erupts. So Michael gets that. I get that. Tonight is your show. Kick back. Enjoy. Our guest tonight is Michael Salla. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Email is jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Tonight, Michael Salla, short break, and we'll kick this thing off. Let's do this. I'll be right back.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio. When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roast it to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Yes, Rivermoon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied, dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from Rivermoon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. In a world of GMO, genetically modified organisms, that is, chemicals, processed foods, and a healthcare system that's unraveling like a cheap suit, it's time to prepare. God created herbs, and herbs help man. Our body can heal itself, just sometimes we need assistance. You need some help? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Our mild detox is quite powerful with its unique blend of 8 different herbs. And if you're looking for more, our non-GMO supplements will help you with different needs you might have. Health should be a top priority. Take care of your health naturally. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Give your body a treat. Let the herbs do their thing naturally. Read all the testimonies on the website, GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Sickness and viruses are like intruders, and herbs are like warriors. Let the tea work for you. That's GetTheTea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Klutsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fade or Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Manson. You're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
All right, welcome back. Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Dr. Michael E. Salla is a pioneer in the development of exopolitics, the political study of the key actors, institutions, and processes associated with extraterrestrial life. His interest in exopolitics evolved out of his investigation of the sources of international conflict and its relationship to extraterrestrial presence that is not acknowledged to the general public, elected officials, or even senior military officials. Dr. Salla's groundbreaking Exopolitics, Political Implications of the Extraterrestrial Presence was the first published book on exopolitics and explained the political implications of extraterrestrial life. His other works include In Exposing U.S. Government Policies on Extraterrestrial Life, The Galactic Diplomacy, Getting to Yes with E.T., Kennedy's Last Stand, Eisenhower UFOs, MJ-12, and JFK's assassination, and of course, The Insiders Reveal Secret Space Programs and Extraterrestrial Alliances. His forthcoming book is The U.S. Navy Secret Space Program and Nordic Extraterrestrial Alliance, due out later on this year. I would like to welcome back to the program our good friend, Dr. Michael E. Salla. Dr. Salla, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Jimmy.
Michael, the E is there because there's so many other Michael Sallas running around, and you feel the need to get the E in there? You're supposed to laugh at this point.
Well, it's kind of like a heritage thing. It comes from my father's side of the family. It's named after my grandfather, so I kind of keep it in there as just a kind of family reminder of ancestors and so forth.
And it rolls off the tongue nicely. Michael E. Salla. You know, you got to look at it that way too. It's easy to say.
Right. Well, actually, the middle name stands for Imin, which I believe is Arabic for spirit. Good spirit.
See, and this is what's really funny. When I have a guest on that has a middle initial, I say the exact same thing that I'm saying to you now, and I always want to get from everybody why they go with the middle initial. You know, I dropped it. I dropped it years ago, and it's really funny to get everybody's responses out of them. So a lot of stuff is going on in the world right now. And before we jump into this, and I want to thank you for sharing those documents, and we'll get those posted up here in a bit, is the definition of exopolitics, because here where we you call it the political study of the key actors, right, and institutions. And I get that part of it. But for the audience, what's the easiest way for them to understand the definition of exopolitics? And so, because I think it's misused a lot, if you know what I mean.
Well, the way I approach it, and this is something I did from the very beginning, was that I actually just used it as a way of describing a field within politics. So politics, I actually taught international politics, and my PhD is in political science. And in the field of political science, you have various subgenres. You have, like, for example, comparative politics, you have geopolitics, you have national politics, and so then you have exopolitics, which is all to do with the political aspects of extraterrestrial life or everything else that's happening outside of our world. So, it is something. that inevitably will be taught at every major university in the United States. We're talking thousands of universities and colleges, and every one of them will eventually have professors teaching exopolitics.
Oh, I get you. And do you think that, with the United Nations and an obvious ET agenda that must be in place for, the inevitable, at some point it's going to have to go public and we're going to have an administration in place. Do you think that that's actively looked at right now with the United Nations and governments around the world?
Yes, there is a department within the United Nations called the Office for Outer Space Affairs, and that was created out of the major spacefaring nations signing a treaty, the Outer Space Treaty, back in around 1966-67, and that was ratified, and so they created this Office for Outer Space Affairs, and it's the chairman of that particular office is the person who basically is the United Nations official who's in charge of dealing with anything to do with outer space. So it's as far as I recall, it's an Italian. I can't remember her name, but she is now ostensibly the person on the planet who would officially represent everyone in kind of like setting up those initial protocols if contact were to be made.
And what would you think the first step would be? I mean, is there a chain of command?
Well, there is. I mean, every nation has its own hierarchical system. In the United Nations, you have the Secretary General of the United Nations, and you have the Security Council, and then you have various agencies, departments within the United Nations, and this Office for Outer Space Affairs is one of them. And so you would have, for example, just say ETs suddenly showed up and they said, "Well, take us to your leader." Well, they wouldn't necessarily go to the White House or go to the Kremlin. They would go to New York City and go to Trump Tower. Sorry, just a joke there.
Okay.
No, they'd actually go nearby to the United Nations headquarters in New York City, and there they would essentially send a delegate to meet with the Secretary General, who would then be the person who would be responsible for convening the Security Council, convening the General Assembly, informing all of the major nation states, and getting this his subordinates like the Office of Outer Space Affairs to kind of deal with that. So yes, there is an official, the Secretary General of the United Nations, who would be the logical contact person for contact be made. And, there is an actual precedent for this. In 1989, the then Secretary General, Javier Perez de Cuellar, was actually involved in a contact incident. And based on various sources, he was actually taken up by the extraterrestrials. But it wasn't a positive experience for him, and so the whole thing was covered up. But there have been a number of sources talking about that.
Yeah, and I remember that. What was the lady's name that witnessed it from her apartment window? If we're talking about the same...
Linda Cotilli.
Yes. And his motorcade was literally on the street below her apartment, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
And there's a whole history to it. Bud Hopkins wrote this book called Witness, which really is the authoritative analysis of that whole incident. And it's quite clear, that this was not an ordinary abduction incident, that in fact a message was being sent to the United Nations. And the effect of the message really was this particular group of extraterrestrials that were involved in the abduction of the Secretary General, they were basically wanting him to maintain the secrecy that was then in place. And so that's something that Bud Hopkins talked about in the book Witness. And incidentally, Stephen Greer, I'm sure you and your audience are well familiar with Dr. Greer, he actually was in touch with Prince Hans Adam from Liechtenstein, I believe, who actually told him about that incident and that there was an attempt to actually move forward with disclosure, because this was at the height of the events that led to the end of the Cold War. So there was a lot of collaboration between the Soviet Union and the US and other major nations. So they wanted to move forward with disclosure. And then this incident happened with the Secretary General, and that kind of stopped everything.
The question that would be asked first, if everything came down, right, and it was playing out in front of us, what do you think the Secretary General would say first? I mean, what would be the first thing? You've got to start off on the right foot, right? You don't want to misstep here. How do you think the dialogue would be opened?
Well, I think what he would do would be that he would say that he's a representative of all the nations on the planet, and that his duty is to relay any message to all of the leaders of the world so that they could then come up with a policy or response. So he would actually just make it very clear that his role is to just pass on any information he receives so that the leaders of the different nations could then make the decision. So he would meet with extraterrestrials, he and his anyone else that was charged with being a part of this meeting would then take whatever message was given to them to the Security Council and to the General Assembly, and based on the response of the Security Council and the General Assembly, the Secretary General would then go back to the alien ambassadors and say, this is the answer from the leaders of the world.
Yeah, and that would make sense. Almost a softball, right? But I also have this thought. They must have already had this conversation, right? That the dialogue has been ongoing for years. Is that the position? That's how I feel. Is that your position?
Well, I think that the different nations, their leaders, are kind of, some of them are briefed into what's been going on. A lot of them aren't briefed. I mean, the people that run the spy agencies and the military-industrial complexes in different major nations, they have more of an idea of what's going on. So, when it gets to the United Nations, it's only when there is a kind of serious initiative to move forward where all the major nations have to coordinate. And so the United Nations is the best place for them to do that coordination. So that's why in 1989, as the Cold War was coming to an end and there was this kind of window for disclosure to happen, there were these meetings between the different leaders to kind of like thrash out how they would approach the whole kind of global disclosure announcement. But other than kind of situations like that, a lot of United Nations officials wouldn't necessarily be briefed on this, only if there's a need to know. And as I said, that's kind of like very rare, only when there are certain circumstances. But I think right now they probably are having meetings to discuss events way down south.
Yeah, that's definitely going on. And before we get to that, we'll spend the rest of the show discussing that. We have this announcement, this press conference tomorrow with NASA, and their general statement is about a discovery of an exoplanet outside of our solar system. Now, that's a pretty broad statement, but for them to call a press conference, is this another part of the slow disclosure? Do you feel like this is just another piece of the puzzle and they're slowly feeding it to us?
for the mainstream scientific community, for them, the whole kind of Kepler Space Telescope and the discovery of exoplanets has been a major shift, a major paradigm. Because, it might sound really funny for the audience that prior to around 2008, 2009, before the Kepler Space Telescope started returning all the data on the exoplanets, a lot of scientists basically said, well, we don't know for sure that there are other planets out in the universe or in our galaxy. And so until we get confirmation for that, then we can't talk about the possibility of extraterrestrial life out there. Well, as the exoplanets data started coming in, that within the kind of conventional scientific community really set off a paradigm shift, because now all of a sudden there were, hundreds of thousands, millions, even billions of these planets in our galaxy alone, and that as they began to get more and more data, they found that there were a lot of rocky worlds out there, and that some of them have kind of conditions in terms of orbiting their sun in the so-called Goldilocks region, which would make it habitable. So this has been a kind of a big part of the exoplanet discoveries that they've had previous press conferences where they've kind of rolled out incrementally these things, that for example, they had press conferences a few years ago saying that, that they've discovered some rocky exoplanets, kind of super Earths rather than gas giants. So that was a big step forward. Then they discovered some of these rocky planets were in the habitable zone of the Goldilocks regions of that particular solar system. So that was another press conference. So I suspect, if I were to guess, tomorrow would be kind of like another step forward in terms of them maybe making an announcement that they've detected the telltale signs of some kind of organic molecules, or say substances, gases like methane or oxygen in some of these exoplanets. And so that would then kind of open the door to a lot of scientific speculation for what's causing the oxygen or the methane, which typically is only caused by kind of organisms, some kind of organism. It doesn't have to be advanced life. It can be some primitive organism in the ocean, plankton, for example. And so I suspect that might be the kind of announcement that they have, that there's a telltale life signature gas that they've discovered. That's my guess what they plan to roll out tomorrow.
Yeah, there has to be something to it. And the reason why is they've been announcing exoplanets, on a weekly basis, right? We get those press releases. So for them to organize this and kind of lock it down, there's an embargo on the release of the information until 1 p.m. tomorrow Eastern time. So for them to lock it down, there's got to be something separate and special about this press conference, other than we've just discovered another 100 planets or another 1,000 planets. There has to be something to it. I'm hoping, this is what I'm hoping. I know that we're not going to get an ET alien announcement tomorrow. I don't think it's going to come in this fashion, but it has to be definitive and different than the other information we've been getting over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years.
Yes, exactly. It's going to be something unique, an advance on previous announcements, and probably the detection of abundant gases in the atmosphere of an exoplanet, which is indicative of some life, oxygen or methane. That would probably be a unique step forward.
How do you think, before we move on, how do you think the announcement would come when it comes to disclosure? I talked about this last night on the show. I get so much email about the D word, right? I get it every single day. How do I think it's going to happen? Do I think it's happening? And so forth. For you, this is something that you've been studying for a long time and writing about. For you, how do you think disclosure would happen if they were forced into it?
Well, it's always helpful to keep in mind that there's two really important things to keep about disclosure. One is disclosure, public disclosure, and that's what we're doing now. When whistleblowers come forward, reveal what's going on, and alternative media such as your show and Coast to Coast and others put that out, that is public disclosure. That is people hearing for the first time that this information exists. And for those that hear it, it's life-changing. I mean, I know for myself, back in 2001, when I heard the Disclosure Project press conference by Stephen Greer, that changed my life. Really, to me, that opened my eyes to something really profound happening with all of these whistleblowers talking about various extraterrestrial-related projects. That only happens once. In a person's life, in terms of them suddenly waking up and yes, there is a big cover up and the extraterrestrials out there. Sure, you learn a lot more details as you go along, but it really kind of happens in one for the person for the first time. It opens your eyes to this vast phenomenon out there. Then, of course, there's the official disclosure, and that's the one that the big D disclosure, where the government, President Trump would come forward and give his press conference, or maybe he'll do it through a tweet, hey, we discovered aliens on Mars or something like that, that there would be an official disclosure along those lines through some political representative. People have been waiting for that for a long time, but what we have been seeing is that official disclosure hasn't happened because it seems that whenever there are moves for that to move forward, that there's something that happens behind the scenes to put a block to that.
Why do you think that NASA? Because NASA has to have more information than they're, letting go of. That's for sure, and I respect that. But why do you think that they never have anything relevant? Right? It's always just enough that it's on the other side of the hill. Right? It's never that relevant thing. Why do you, in your estimation, why do you think they always hold back? They're like giving us 90%.
It's like a big teaser, really.
It is.
I mean, like the whole Mars exploration program. I mean, they sent rovers up there and orbiters up there to kind of study for the telltale signs of ancient life on Mars, or any records in the upper atmosphere of Mars, or any kind of evidence that suggests that there was once life on Mars, which sounds kind of a logical thing to do. But, the big question is, but yes, aren't you also testing for life on Mars today?
Right.
And the answer is they're not. And for them, it's like, well, once we found conclusive evidence that, that Mars was once hospitable to life in its history, then we could put forward further projects to look for signs of life on Mars today.
I never understood that, Michael. I'm so glad to hear you say that, because I am so confused. When it comes to Mars, the rovers never are sent to the right spot, right? We see snow on Mars. We see it, right? We see ice. We see signs of why aren't we sending a rover to plow through the ice? Why isn't that happening? Why the rover is always in the wrong spot at the wrong time, and it's always breaking down, and it's never quite right, and there's always an excuse. I just don't get that. I'm so glad to hear. It's so refreshing to hear you say that out loud, because I don't get it. It seems a lot more simple to me to just go up there and pick a spot and go and check it out. But they never do it. They never pull it off. It's always, again, like a tease, like you suggest.
Well, that's right. Yes, the program managers and the engineers that run the Mars exploratory probes, their mindset is all about doing these scientific studies for evidence of past life on Mars. And so you could literally have an animal some kind of Martian animal walk right in front of the rover, and the scientists would consider that an anomaly that is outside their mission parameters. And so they would just exclude it because
I know, right?
it really is outside of their mission parameters. Yeah, I mean, it's so ridiculous, but that is exactly how they would deal with it, because their mission parameters are to look for evidence of historic life forms on Mars. And so if you literally had a Martian in front of the camera showing off, it's like, okay, this is an anomaly outside mission parameters, let's move on.
Do you remember, we're going to hit a break here. I'm just going to get a quick laugh out of you. Do you remember about a year ago, the floating spoon photographs that were, going around from the Mars surface? Do you remember that?
I vaguely remember that, but I know there have been many different objects sighted up there on Mars.
Well, this was a spoon, right? A spoon floating. You could see the shadow underneath it, right? It's a spoon. It's an object that looks exactly like a spoon that is floating. Dude, take the rover over there and figure out what that is. But they don't do it. I don't get it. I would think that'd be the most. I would grab that joystick, right, and I would cruise that rover over and check that thing out. Grab it, photograph it, videotape it, and let's figure out what that is. But no, they keep driving. And I don't understand the mentality. I just can't figure it out. I just throw up my arms and just roll my eyes because they'll never do anything.
Well, that's right. They have these kind of blinkers on which really the scientific parameters they set for that particular project, and anything outside of those parameters is just totally excluded. They're not interested in it at all. And so, yes, they're totally blinkered when it comes to those sorts of things, and they just consider them anomalies that are outside the mission parameters, and so they're just totally ignored.
Well, let's take a break right here. When we come back, we're going to discuss what's going on down south, way down south in Antarctica. Our guest tonight is Dr. Michael Salla. I'm your host, Jimmy Church, and we'll get these images posted up, and we're going to go through all of these one at a time, and we're going to figure out what's going on down there. There's something, and this is Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Dr. Michael Salla. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. We'll be right back.
Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
Hello, I'm Kat Deely, and you're listening to my main man, Jimmy Church, on jimmychurchradio.com.
Hi, this is Ray Hobbs here, repping the planet, and you're listening to my good friend, Jimmy Church, Fade to Black, on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station.
This is Toby Kebbell. You're listening to jimmychurchradio.com. Don't hurt me, Jimmy. I'm only little.
Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And this is Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. Yes. We are of the Honey Brothers. Hey, I'm Adrian Grenier. And I'm Ari Gold. We're the Honey Brothers. And you're listening to Jimmy Church. The Revolution.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring 2 Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hard shell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The 2 full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping.
It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Tepe.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies.
I was diagnosed with congestive heart failure. I went from being able to work 14, 16 hours a day with no problem to where I could barely walk a block to the store. I went on to the phytonutrients about 6 months ago, and within a couple of months, my medical doctor had cut my prescriptions down in a little bit smaller dosage. The next time I went back a month later, I walked into the doctor's office and he says, "My gosh, what's happened to you? You don't even look like the same person." He looked at my legs and the swelling had gone down. My blood pressure was down. The venous stasis ulcers that I had had on my legs for the last 4 or 5 years because of the poor circulation were all healed, and I'm feeling far better.
The new challenge will allow you to receive 2 months of Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies free. And we'll even ship them to you free. Call now for details. Call 1-800-246-8751. Or go online to balanceofnature.com. Use promo code TALK.
This is Micah Hanks of the Gralien Report, and you're listening to Jimmy Church on Fade to Black, across the globe on the Game Changer Radio Network and the one and only KGRA Radio, The Planet.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Dr. Michael E. Salla, Exopolitics. We're going to discuss what is going on down south in Antarctica. I've got some images here, some Freedom of Information Act documents that Mr. Salla has, Dr. Salla has gotten and sent them to us. So, Michael, I've got the 3 here. And before we get to these, I've got them up and opened. What do you think is actually going on at this moment? There's been a lot of activity. Of course, Buzz Aldrin and John Kerry, the Vatican have all made trips down to Antarctica just recently. Why all the activity down there now?
Well, I think the interesting thing here is that the mass media and the general public have been informed of these dignitaries going down to Antarctica. That John Kerry's trip to Antarctica was well publicized. It wasn't kept a secret. That Patriarch Kirill, of the head of the Russian Orthodox Church, similarly, he went down there, and that wasn't kept a secret. You also had Australia's Governor General going down there in 2016, and his visit was also publicly released. So, exactly what they're seeing down there. I mean, there have been statements from people, Corey Good in particular, who's talked about what he has seen down there and what he has been told is going on down there. But I think it's really significant that there have been this kind of number of dignitaries that have been going down there, and the public has been informed of that. And what that suggests to me is that the public's attention is being turned towards Antarctica, and the public are being told, pay attention, that there's something important going on down there, and so you're going to learn more. And I think that's where we have whistleblowers like Corey Good playing a very important role, because he's able to give information, even first-hand direct evidence of what he has seen down there in Antarctica. And there have also been other researchers that have been analyzing internet trends. Cliff High, who does the webbots, he also has identified Antarctica as something that is going to become a very big issue in the next couple of years.
No matter what is found down there, it's significant. It could be a past, lost civilization. Maybe Antarctica was Atlantis. It could be that. It could be the presence of an ET civilization. It could be confirmation about what the Nazis were doing down there with New Swaziland. It could be any of those things. All of them any of the one would be completely significant and history changing, earth changing, man changing.
Exactly. I mean, this is something that people are going to really have their worldviews dramatically changed when they find out that beneath that 2-mile layer of ice over the continent of Antarctica, there was once this flourishing world, this flourishing civilization that had actually achieved a high level of technological sophistication, but that at some point in its history, and this could be traced back to around 12,000 years ago, there was some pole shift. There was an event, a geological event of major planetary significance that resulted in this flourishing civilization suddenly finding itself located in the present South Pole, and everything was flash frozen. And over the last 10 to 12,000 years, you've had ice accumulate over that civilization. Now the ice shelf is like 2 miles thick in places. And so I think this is where, it really becomes very interesting exactly what is down there. When were these ruins discovered? The role of the Nazi Germany in all of this, and what role did the U.S. Military play in monitoring what was down there in Antarctica?
Okay, let's look at. Did you see the picture of the spoon? I popped it up in your text. Did you see it?
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I see.
I just want your reaction to that. It's pretty interesting. It's
right, the spoon. Yes, that's very interesting.
Yeah. Now, why not cruise the rover, right? Just go. Tell me what that is. Floating. Now, I don't know. Millions of years of wind and erosion. Okay, is it possible? Yeah, sure, I guess. But it looks like a spoon to me. And I just don't know what to make of that. But anyway, there it is. There's the spoon. Okay, which one of these documents would you like us to review first?
Well, the first document is the one that really is, I think, very helpful in understanding the claims that William Tompkins has been making about this Nazi espionage program that was run by the Navy, the U.S. Navy, during the Second World War, where they learned a number of things about Nazi Germany, but one of the things that's very pertinent to what we're just begun discussing was that the Nazis had established secret bases in Antarctica, that the Nazis had this vast fleet of submarines that could travel long distances under the water, and these were massive submarines that by the end of the war, I mean, the estimate of the number of submarines that the Germans had secretly built throughout the war numbered in the thousands. I mean, this is much more than conventional scholars have pointed out, and that the Navy was basically had a team, had 29 spies in Nazi Germany, occupied Europe during the Second World War, and they were basically spying on all of this and relaying back to the Navy exactly what the Germans were doing, and the information they were getting about the anti-gravity aerospace programs that the Germans were conducting in occupied Europe and in Antarctica. So this is the man in that first document there. William Tompkins said that this was the officer, the Rear Admiral, who was running this Navy espionage program out of Naval Air Station San Diego. So Bill Tompkins, on your right, he supplied in his book Selected by Extraterrestrials 2 exit passes for Tompkins to carry briefing packets out of Naval Air Station. And the interesting thing here, the very important thing here, was that these passes were signed by the officer who ran the program, which was Rico Borda. But at the time, we didn't know, there was no way of confirming this. So I was working with an attorney based in Virginia, Duke Brickhouse. He's a licensed attorney in the state of Virginia. And so we put in a Freedom of Information Act request, and we got back 1,500 pages of documents on this admiral. And so when we looked at the signature of the admiral, which is what you see on the left, you can see that there's a perfect match. So what you have here is documentary confirmation for Bill Tompkins saying that this was the admiral who was running the program that Tompkins was a part of, where these Navy spies were reporting on things that were happening in occupied Europe and also what was happening in Antarctica. So this is a really powerful corroboration for Bill Tompkins' claim that the Navy actually was aware of all of this. So this basically means that as early as 1942, that the Navy was aware that the Germans were running these programs and had actually set up shop in Antarctica. That's when the information started to come to them. But of course, they couldn't really put too much energy into it and put resources into it until after the war, because they were fighting on two fronts. They were fighting in the Pacific and fighting in Europe, and so the Navy really had to wait until after the war, after the surrender of Japan, to suddenly put resources into finding out what was happening down in Antarctica.
Yeah, the signatures certainly match. I'm looking here. Is it 1944 on the top one? And what is the bottom one is 1943? Is that what I'm seeing?
Yes, 1943 and 1944, these are the dates of those two exit passes that Bill Tompkins supplied. And that photo with the signature underneath it is just a personnel file for Admiral Boulder back from 1934, but the thing was that it had his signature very clearly.
Oh, it's his.
And you can make the match.
Yep.
It's like, yes, this is the guy that was running the program Tompkins was talking about.
You just have to thank Tompkins for having the wherewithal to hang on to this stuff. Right? I mean, that's how many years ago now?
Well, he turns 94 this year, and
I know.
He's got really boxes of documents, and I've actually seen him 3 times now. Traveled to San Diego, and being able to go through all of his documents. Dr. Bob Wood and myself have gone through all of his documents, and found which ones were really the most significant in terms of his story. And so that is what I'm putting out in this book that's coming out beginning of next month, and that will also come out in the second volume of William Tompkins' autobiography.
Now, the second document is a close-up of the exit pass. And you've got some pretty interesting information here. Obviously, the non-combat airplane, I want to get to that. But these are on Twitter right now. Everybody can look at these documents yourself. So take us through this exit pass of 1944.
So this exit pass is very significant because it has, again, the signature of the admiral that was running the program. And it also has the reference to the issue of non-combat airplane. And so this is really another smoking gun kind of reference to this covert program that Tompkins was a part of, because Tompkins said that that his assignment was to listen to the debriefings of these Navy spies, and that he would then put together briefing packets, and he would take these briefing packets to aerospace companies, military think tanks, university departments, whoever had the scientific wherewithal to understand this kind of information. He would take these briefing packets to see if they could make heads or tails of it, because a lot of this information was literally out of this world. I mean, this was the reality they were dealing with. They couldn't understand this, so they needed the help scientists and engineers from around the country. And Bill Tompkins, he was given his responsibility was to take these briefing packets, and he actually was trained to be a pilot, and he would actually this pass here refers to him being given a non-combat airplane. Now, the thing here is to keep in mind is that this document was signed, this Exopass was signed by the admiral that was in charge of the assembly and repair facility at the Naval Air Station, and that this was something well beyond Tompkins' official job assignment as a second-class airman that was really doing kind of routine aviation tasks that he was not trained to. His official assignment had nothing to do with being a pilot and doing anything in regard to taking things outside of the base. So this document shows that Tompkins was part of a covert program involving briefing packets, and that this was run by the commanding officer, the Rear Admiral, in charge of that department at the Naval Air Station San Diego during the Second World War.
Is there a conventional, non-offensive use for this too, as well? That that this could be actually innocent, because it doesn't look that way. Obviously, it says right there that William Tompkins is being issued a non-combat airplane. Right, that's pretty significant, being signed off by an admiral. But is there an innocent version of this that could be explained away? How the Air Force would explain this away? Oh, this is just that we did these all the time.
Well, that doesn't make sense, because during the Second World War, everyone that was working for the military, I mean, they had their official duty, and they were supposed to really just focus on that duty. And Tompkins' official duty was, he was a second-class seaman in aviation, and he was a machinist. And so that was what he was officially doing. It had nothing to do with flying an aircraft. But Tompkins has documents that show that he was trained to be a pilot by the Navy. You have this exit pass showing that he was issued a non-combat airplane to take a briefing packet, or to take a package outside of the Naval Air Station. So this is confirmation for Tompkins' story that he was doing this. And he says that he did this over the course of 4 years, he delivered these things over 1,000 times to different locations in the country.
Yeah, and it's and the other part for me when it comes to Bill is his ability to remember and draw and recreate, and that was his real gig, right? Was when they debriefed all of these officers and whoever, spies and whatnot, that he was able to remember and then exactly duplicate what they were describing and what he saw.
That's why he was chosen. And again, this is where Bill Tompkins has documents showing that his photographic memory, his attention for detail in designing complex ships was something that brought him to the attention of the highest levels of the U.S. Navy. That in 1941, when Bill Tompkins was only 17 years old, he was already meeting rear admirals. I mean, this is something to really emphasize here, that he was an exceptional man or young man at the time, and he had been introduced to admirals who were so impressed by the exact details of the ship models that he was building, and that he was also a person that the Office of Naval Intelligence had a special interest in. So there are documents that show that, yes, Tompkins was involved very early on as a teenager in these Navy programs. And so it's not surprising that we have confirmation for some of the things that Tompkins has later said in terms of him taking these briefing packets to these top aerospace companies around the country and universities and so forth, because he had this ability to recall everything that the Navy spies had said about what they had seen in occupied Germany. And, they were describing really complex designs and prototypes of kind of anti-gravity vehicles or any kind of advanced technologies that the Nazis were working on. And so they would, in their debriefings, describe these things. And William Tompkins, because he had this total memory recall and he had this really incredibly advanced ability for ship design, he was able to put that together into a coherent package that could then be given to anyone who could kind of understand the science behind this.
This third document, I want to spend some time on this because there's a lot of information here. But you've described it as visit to classified facilities and annotated. Okay, so what are we looking at here? And I kind of want to go line by line. We're going to hit a break here in 5 minutes. So let's get as far into this as we can, and then we'll pick it up on the break after the break.
Well, this is a document from September of 1942, and this was issued to the person who became the Rear Admiral. He was promoted. In this document, it refers to him as Captain Rick Orbota, but only months after he was transferred to Naval Air Station San Diego, he was promoted to Rear Admiral. But at the time, he was in charge of the Power Plants Division at the Bureau of Aeronautics for the Navy, and he was given a temporary assignment to travel to these classified experimental aircraft facilities to basically set up the program that he would be leading out of San Diego. And here, this document, it shows some of these experimental aircraft facilities that he visited, and it lists them. The U.S. Army Air Force Experimental Station at Muroc, California, which today is Edwards Air Force Base, and that's where you have major companies like Lockheed Martin doing all kinds of classified aerospace programs for the Air Force today. Douglas Aircraft Company in El Segundo, California, also one of the leading experimental aircraft companies in the world at the time. Northrop Aircraft Company, similarly, again, a leading experimental aircraft facility. And you had Naval Air Station San Diego, which for the Navy is their premier kind of flight school, flying facility. That's where the Navy first set up its kind of flying wings, its air squadrons. So that is also where they have a long history in doing work on experimental aircraft. So this document is significant because it mentions these 5 facilities and companies and military installations that Admiral Bota traveled to before he took up the assignment, and this at Naval Air Station in San Diego. And this is where Tompkins later was asked to travel to with these briefing packets. And again, this is another document confirming a key part of Tompkins' story, that Tompkins said that he was taking these briefing packets to all of these experimental aircraft facilities under the direct orders of Admiral Bota. So here you have a document showing that Admiral Bota, only months before Tompkins said he was being ordered to do this, that Bota was traveling to the same facilities to set up, to do some work that was related to his upcoming reassignment to Naval Air Station San Diego. So this is another important document that substantiates against Bill Tompkins. And I think this is significant because a lot of people say, well, where's the documentary evidence for what Bill Tompkins is saying, what Corey Goode is saying? Where's the meat here? And so this set of documents, as well as the documents, there's more documents that are in the book that's being released on March 1st that really substantiate what Bill Tompkins has been saying, that substantiate what Corey Goode has been saying, and really make it clear that these guys are for real, that their information is very, very important, and that we need to pay attention.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting how it's worded, too, because it says proceed to the place or places in the order given, indicated below for temporary duty. This is in addition to your present duties, and upon the completion thereof, you will return to your station. On or about October 1st, 1942, to Los Angeles, California, via commercial aircraft, and thence to the following places and such other places as may be necessary in connection with inspecting experimental aircraft and for conferences in connection with aircraft matters. Very, very strongly worded and directly to the point. And then, after the list of the facilities, it says you are authorized to omit or revisit any of the above-mentioned places or vary the above itinerary as may be deemed necessary. Pretty much a ticket to ride.
Well, one of the things that is very helpful in understanding who Rick Orbota was that at the time that he traveled to these facilities, he was the head of the power plant department at the Bureau of Aeronautics in Washington, D.C. So he was the Navy's top guy when it came to understanding power, how to generate power for aircraft engines. So he was the guy that was there who could understand what new technologies or scientific principles might be feasible for developing more powerful aircraft engines. So he went there to these places to look at what they had that could help the Navy develop more powerful engines for its aircraft. But the other thing here, and this is a document that's in the book, is that on February 25th, 1942, Bota was ordered to travel to Wright Field Air Force, Wright Field base in Dayton, Ohio, to perform another temporary assignment. And February 25th, 1942 is very famous because we are experiencing the 75th anniversary of that night this Friday. And, of course, that's the LA air raid. And there are documents and testimonies by Bill Tompkins and others that say that both the Air Force, the Army Air Force and the Navy got their hands on some of these flying saucers that were hovering over Los Angeles and that they had been shot down, and that one of these was taken by the Army Air Force to Wright Field. This is on February 25th, 1942. So on the same day that the Army is taking one of these captured flying saucers from Los Angeles to its premier research facility at Wright Field, on that same day, Rick Orbota was given orders to go to Wright Field to do a temporary assignment. So again, this is another document that shows that this man, Rick Orbota, was running this program.
Yeah, let's take a break right here. Dr. Salla, you are the best. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. More with Dr. Salla right after this short break. Stay with us.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church.
You're listening to Fade to Black.
Always on the edge of the hottest alternative talk. Jimmy Church with Fade to Black. KGRAradio.com.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo
yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Oh, fall. My favorite time of year. Cooler temperatures and, well, let's be honest, layers. Lots and lots of layers. Look, I get it. We all have that favorite hoodie. Matter of fact, I've got a few favorite hoodies. You should wear yours. Enjoy it. I do. But I stay focused on my health year-round. And for me, I take Nature's Youth RSF from nature'syouth.com. Nature's Youth RSF from nature'syouth.com. I eat right, control my portion sizes, still maintain a commitment to regular fitness, and I get plenty of rest, and I take Nature's Youth RSF. It's okay to cover up your beach body for a few months, but don't just forget about it. Nature's Youth understands exactly what it means to provide top-quality health products, and Nature's Youth customers not only improve their health, they know they're also providing their body with the right nourishment to maintain peak performance levels and fight the aging process. So layer up and get started today with Nature's Youth RSF. nature'syouth.com. Simple to use, even simpler to order. Go to nature'syouth.com. That's nature'syouth.com.
I have actually been on Balance of Nature for a year now. I have MS, and I recently had an MRI. This is the first year that I've had a stable MRI, so I'm thrilled. When I have an MRI with MS, usually there are glowing spots that come through, which is damage on the nerves in my brain and my spinal cord, and when they're glowing, it means they're active. And then my last MRI, they pulled it up, and I honestly couldn't believe that it was my MRI. There was nothing glowing. And in fact, the dark spots were shrinking. They were healing. And the doctor actually said to me, I think we're in remission. I was so happy. I had no idea that that could be my reality.
The new challenge will allow you to receive 2 months of Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies free. And we'll even ship them to you free. Call now for details. Call 1-800-246-8751 or go online to balanceofnature.com. Use promo code TALK.
You are listening to Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Network.
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
Welcome back, Fade to Black. Our guest tonight, Dr. Michael E. Salla. We're talking about Antarctica, exopolitics. The world is a crazy place right now. And we're going through these Freedom of Information Act documents that Dr. Salla has provided to us that he acquired last month. And one of the documents, all of these, are the details of Rear Admiral, at the time, Captain Rico Botta of the United States Navy, and the Battle of Los Angeles. I don't want this to get away from us because I think that it is significant, Dr. Salla. So let's kind of go over that again because I think it kind of got past everybody and we hit the break. Battle of Los Angeles, February 24th, 1942. A very significant event in the United States history. Cover of the LA Times. I don't know how many shots were fired, Dr. Salla, 1,200 or something.
That's right. Yes, there were the artillery barrages by both the army and also the Navy. There were a lot of ships there in the bay, and they shot at these craft that were hovering over Los Angeles on the early morning of February 25th, or the night of February 24th, 1942. And some of these craft were stationary, so that tells us that these were craft that had mastered anti-gravity technology, because nothing at the time could hover. I mean, helicopters were developed later, and these objects were silent. The only thing people could hear was the artillery barrage that was shooting at these things, and a lot of these things seemed to be just kind of impervious to the artillery barrage. But still, two of the objects were shot down. According to Bill Tompkins, the two of these UFOs, they were kind of drones. They weren't piloted, and that one was fell in the foothills there by Los Angeles, so one of the mountain chains there, and the other in the ocean. So the Army got one and the Navy got the other one. And so the Army's, the one that they got, they had that transported to Wright Field. This was before the day of this was before the U.S. Air Force was formed. So back in 1942, you had the U.S. Army Air Corps, U.S. Army Air Forces, that their premier research facility was at Wright Field in Dayton, Ohio. So that's where any foreign technology, anything to do with advanced experimental aircraft, it was taken to Wright Field for study. So this is where they took that retrieved flying saucer, or this pilotless drone that had been shot down over at Los Angeles. They took it to Wright Field, and so this happened on February 25th, that they began transporting this object over there. And so on that very day, Rick Orbota was working at the Bureau of Aeronautics, and he was in charge of the power plant department there, and he was given orders to travel to Wright Field, and he set off, and he arrived there around a week later, 10 days later, something like that. So, but I think that the key here was that he got the orders on the day that the craft was retrieved, according to different whistleblowers and to what leaked documents have told us of what was really happening with the Los Angeles air raid. And so I think this is very significant that this man, he was a commander at that time in February of 1942. He was a commander, that he was the Navy's expert on anything to do with the advanced power systems of any kind of experimental aircraft. That Borda was the guy that they would send to understand that. And so that's what happened. And because of his understanding or his exposure to this retrieved UFO craft in February of 1942, the Navy then picked him to be the officer in charge of this espionage program out of Nazi Germany, to understand the principles behind these anti-gravity. So there is a connection here between the Los Angeles air raid and gravity research that the Nazis were doing in Germany, and that Rick Orbota was the Navy's guy to kind of like understand the connection here, and to then help the Navy and the US military in general kind of take steps so that they could be prepared for that day when this kind of advanced technology could be developed, and you could have new generations of fighter craft and so forth.
I've often wondered when it came to the Battle of Los Angeles that to fire 1,400 artillery shells, anti-aircraft shells, and if it was a balloon, a dirigible, a blimp, or something like that, it would have been shot down very quickly. If it would have been any other conventional aircraft, Japanese or German or what have you, it would have been shot down out of the sky. These floated and were up there for hours, right? Now, but I've often wondered if it was E.T. that was there, could have been, or was it German technology that was maybe on loan to the Japanese that was on our Pacific coast, or that it was German technology in general? Do you have any indication about what was up there? Was it ET or was it German ET technology?
Based on my research, I believe that this was a fleet of spacecraft belonging to Nordic extraterrestrials, that they were giving a gift to the Navy, to the US military, because this is something that unfolded with the espionage program, that the Navy learned that Nazi Germany had reached agreements with a group of reptilian extraterrestrials, and that these reptilians were helping the Nazis with advanced technologies so that they could actually, if not win the war, at the very least be able to establish a very advanced outpost in Antarctica where they could continue to develop these advanced anti-gravity craft. And so you have one extraterrestrial group helping Nazi Germany, and you have another extraterrestrial group, the Nordics, who are really in opposition to the reptilians, helping the US Navy and the US military, giving them a gift in terms of, because as you said, there were 1,200 at least 1,200 artillery shots at these hovering spacecraft that just kind of hung over Los Angeles for hours on the mornings of the 24th and 25th. But what happened was that the craft kind of left. They didn't seem to be affected by the artillery, but then apparently 2 of them were shot down. Now, were they shot down or were they left as gifts? I think they were probably left as gifts because they wanted to help the US Navy, the US Army Air Force basically get up to speed on these kinds of advanced technologies, because they realized that without that kind of help, the Army, the US military would be at a major disadvantage when it came to the kind of assistance that Nazi Germany was getting from these reptilian extraterrestrials. So in a way, what I'm saying, Jimmy, is that in the middle of the Second World War, the Second World War, in a way, was a proxy war between these competing extraterrestrial groups that had very different agendas. One group supported the Axis power, that's the reptilians, and the other group, the Nordic extraterrestrials, supported the US and Britain in their efforts to basically counter what the Nazis were doing.
Do you think... Okay. I've asked Corey the same question. I would love your opinion on this. Don't you think that whether it was the reptilians or the Dracos or whoever was helping the Nazis at that time in World War II had enough intelligence to realize that the Nazi war machine was a bad situation and that they shouldn't be helping them and that they backed off? Do you think that that's ultimately what happened?
Well, I think in terms of what really happened in the Second World War, there's no question that based on technology, advanced technologies, that Germany should have won that war easily, and they were being given help by the reptilians. But what had happened was that Hitler made a number of strategic mistakes. You know, one, attacking the Soviet Union. 2, declaring war on the United States. These were strategic blunders that led to the Axis powers, or led to Germany losing the Second World War. So in terms of technology and the kind of assistance that the reptilians were given the Nazis, they should have won the war easily, and they almost did. I mean, just this one simple thing, one of these strategic mistakes Hitler did was that he had the ability to develop fighter jets that would have shot down all of the American and the British bombers that were trying to, attack the Germans during the Second World War. But Hitler made this strategic error where he decided, no, we don't want strategic fighter planes. What we want, strategic jet fighters. What we want are strategic jet bombers, because we want to bomb New York. Well, that really was ridiculous. And Albert Speer kind of discussed this at length, how if Hitler had decided early on to just allow the German armaments industry to develop jet fighter craft, they would have shut down all the bombers that the Americans and the British were sending over, and shot down anything that the Soviets had in the air, and they would have won the war. So Hitler made a succession of strategic blunders, and this is why he lost. And so eventually the Germans had to move all of their remaining resources down to Antarctica using their fleets of submarines, because they had lost the war because of all of these strategic blunders by Hitler, and which is why people often ask, well, Hitler escaped to Antarctica, but why wasn't Hitler allowed to go to Hitler was allowed to escape to Argentina. And the question is, well, why wasn't Hitler allowed to go to Antarctica? Because the Germans understood that he had really made a mess of the war effort. And so while they respected him and gave him a kind of honorary title as the Führer in Argentina, but really the people in Antarctica didn't want anything more to do with Hitler, because he was just a bungler.
Did E.T. take the Nazis to Argentina? They were already there. They already had facilities there, and they led the Nazis down to Argentina, or was it the other way around?
Well, Bill Tompkins describes this. He says that what was happening, and he said that this is what the Navy spies were reporting back to Admiral Borda and the other captains that were present at these debriefings. He said that the Nazi scientists, engineers, they would have these reptilian consultants who would give them advice on building or reverse engineering these anti-gravity craft, and that the reptilians had told the Nazis about these underground bases deep under the Antarctic ice, and that you could only access them through submarines. And so the reptilians gave the Nazis the information they needed so that their submarines could find the entrances to these underwater caverns in Antarctica, so that the Germans could then move all of their equipment, all of their manpower down there, as well as slave labor. I mean, that's also a very important part of this story, that they moved a lot of slave labor down there, down to Antarctica. And so they were able to build a massive colony down there, several 100,000. I mean, that's how big it was.
Right.
And this was where the Nazis would basically regroup after the devastating defeat in Europe.
Is there any remnants of the Fourth Reich? Are there survivors down there now, or is that part over with?
What happened was that those facilities were essentially turned over to the U.S. military-industrial complex when the Nazis reached agreements with the Eisenhower administration in 1953, 54. That agreements were reached. And so as a result of those agreements, the U.S. military-industrial complex increasingly began to cooperate with the Nazis in terms of sharing technologies, sharing resources, sharing manpower, so that the facilities in Antarctica were eventually turned over to what is now, according to Corey Good, is described as the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, which is really basically the major corporations that emerged out of these cooperations, these cooperative agreements that were reached between the US and the Germans, because the Germans had set up a Fourth Reich out of their kind of out of Antarctica, out of Argentina, out of kind of neutral countries in Europe, Spain and Sweden and so forth, Switzerland and so forth. So the Nazis had been able to take out a lot of loot, a lot of resources, and advanced technology, so that after the war they were able to force the Eisenhower administration to reach agreements, so eventually there was a pooling of resources, and so then their Antarctica facilities were simply handed over.
And which brings me back to today, where we started off this conversation at the beginning of the show tonight, when it comes to exopolitics and the United Nations and the chain of command. I think that there's enough evidence out there to support this entire scenario. There's something going on in Antarctica. Is the UN involved? Do they know about these agreements with Eisenhower and the bases that are down in Antarctica, or is this kind of like a United States black project in the background situation?
Well, I think it really is something that major nations like the US and Russia have been kind of like taking charge of from the very beginning. They are doing it through this process of compartmentalized programs where various layers of the military-industrial complex gets involved in these kinds of projects. As far as the United Nations is concerned, only when there's a need to know will they be told, anything about these kinds of projects. Earlier on, we talked about 1989 when the Cold War was ending, that was one instance where there was a kind of need to know. And I think what's happening now in Antarctica is another instance of that, where we've got these major world figures that are going down to Antarctica. And that, I believe, is because the United Nations has been secretly coordinating the different nations to kind of like get together and to prepare for official disclosures about what's been discovered in Antarctica. And yes, I believe the United Nations is going to be playing a key role in.
You brought up, and I think this is an important point, you brought up the press conference from 1981 at the Press Club. And looking back at that to where we are now in 2017, have we come as far, are you happy with our progress, or do you think that disclosure should have happened, that we should have been somewhere else today in 2017 after all these years?
Well, I think, we can go back many, many decades. I think disclosure could have really happened during the Kennedy administration. I think Kennedy wanted to disclose, but he was stopped at the end. There have been other efforts, other initiatives, other presidents that have been wanting to kind of disclose. President Nixon also was someone that was very knowledgeable about these projects. He was vice president under Eisenhower, and he also was wanting to disclose. And they didn't assassinate him, but they conducted a political assassination of him, which was, of course, the impeachment and Watergate and the impeachment. Clinton, we know. President Clinton wanted to kind of like find out what was going on, reveal things. And so, there's been a succession of different presidents wanting to disclose what has been going on. And while there is support within the kind of military intelligence community for this to happen, at various points, it runs into a roadblock and it's shut down. Now, I think that what we are seeing with Antarctica is something unique, something different, because I think that because we've got all of these VIPs going there and that it's become public domain, public knowledge that they have been going there, that a decision has been reached that, yes, Antarctica is going to be the way in which people, the bulk of humanity, are going to first begin learning about these things, such as advanced ancient societies with really advanced technologies, possibly anti-gravity vehicles, free energy devices, possibly alternative healing modalities, and that this is somehow going to revolutionize life on the planet. I think that is probably how they intend to begin rolling it out. And Antarctica, when you look at it logically, it makes for a really very useful mechanism or way in which you can roll out the disclosure, because no one can go down to Antarctica to confirm this. It all has to be done through what the officials tell you.
Well, and that's an interesting point, because if you think about it, it's a really good point to raise, that could be the vehicle that they drive to announce disclosure, because now it's an underhanded pitch, right? It's a slow pitch. You don't have to have ET on the White House lawn. You don't have to say that you've been lying all of these years. You just merely announce that we've found this discovery down in Antarctica, and this is what is going on. That would be easier for us to digest, and we would understand why they are disclosing it the way they are, because it came from Antarctica, right? And it hasn't been a secret. It's just that it's just been discovered, and there is their out, right? It's their easy way out, and they don't have to say that they've lied to us all these years.
Well, that's right, yes. I mean, they could just announce it as this incredible discovery where they have a lot of scientists and archaeologists working on what's been discovered, the artifacts, and then they just kind of start rolling these out in a sequence that helps their agenda, and they can do it. They can roll it out in a way that could really distract the general public from a lot of other things that are going on, and so therefore the people who have been in charge of these projects and doing things that really are horrendous. I mean, really, if we knew the truth, if the public knew the truth, I mean, they'd be kind of like calling for blood, heads to roll. But the thing is, if you roll this information out in a sequence, in a particular sequence, you could keep the public distracted for years and even decades. And I think that's probably what they have in mind for Antarctica. Of course, that is really limited disclosure. That is something that is designed to kind of like distract or keep people focused on the kind of full disclosure testimony of people like Corey Good and William Tompkins and others. But I think really what's happening is that, because so much of the alternative media has been now putting out a lot of this information about secret space programs, about bases on Mars and kind of fleets of Navy space battle groups out there, that I don't think that they're going to succeed in just kind of like releasing some information about some long extinct civilization buried under 2 miles of ice in Antarctica that had achieved incredible technological advances. That I think that's going to be something that's really going to be fascinating and distract people. And
they'll be able to spin it any way they want. You know what I mean? Because they have the information, so they could absolutely spin it the proper way, I would think. Let's take a break right here, Dr. Salla. And you want to take some phone calls? Doctor, you want to take some phone calls?
Sure.
Let's do it. We'll be right back. 323-825-5045.
JimmyChurchRadio.com. KGRA Radio. Intelligent talk.
PatriotPrepared.com carries the leading brands of storable food from Numana, Legacy, and Heaven's Harvest. Patriot Prepared. Our name says it all. We're dedicated to empowering you to be self-reliant and confident in any circumstance. Whether you want to be prepared in the event of an emergency or you're an outdoor sports enthusiast, PatriotPrepared.com has prepackaged meals and kits for your entire family. Legacy, Heaven's Harvest, and Numana are known for high-quality, great-tasting GMO GMO-free, nutritious food with no chemical preservatives. Simple to prepare, easy to store, gluten-free and organic high-quality nutrition options with a 25-year shelf life. You can't beat the feeling of being food secure when you need it most. So go to PatriotPrepared.com right now to pick up your supply of high-quality storable food for your family, because it makes good sense to be prepared. That's PatriotPrepared.com.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
Would you like relief from muscle pain, headaches, and discomfort to sleep better, have more energy during the day, and just feel naturally amazing? Fibromalic can help. Its blend of malic acid and magnesium can provide pain relief and comfort for those who experience fibromyalgia. It helps your body absorb more oxygen, and it works quickly for a significant reduction in pain within 48 hours, all without a prescription. Ask for Fibromalic at health and vitamin shops or shop fibromalic.com.
Did you know that when you're on the road with limited data or Wi-Fi available, you can still listen to every minute of Fade to Black by just calling 605-562-4482. No smartphone, app, or internet needed. It saves your data plan and no extra cost if you have unlimited minutes. Just call 605-562-4482. You can listen to me, Jimmy Church, on any phone, anytime, anywhere. Go Beckley Teppy.
You want to know a secret? I love ponies. I really love ponies. I'm serious. I couldn't stay sane without ponies to brush.
Why Fade to Black? Because you never got that pony, damn
it. This is Fade to Black with Jimmy Church on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, the Global Radio Alliance.
All right, welcome back, Fade to Black. Dr. Michael E. Salla is the pioneer in the development of exopolitics, the political study of the key actors, institutions, and processes associated with extraterrestrial life. He is our guest tonight on Fade to Black. And before we get to the phones, well, you know what? I forgot what I was going to ask. I had it. It was right on my frontal lobes, Dr. Salla. Okay. All right, let's go to the phones. I'll remember what the question was. Hi, you're live on Fade to Black. Say hi to Dr. Salla.
Dr. Salla, you are so well informed and so articulate, and my respect to you. My hat's off to you, sir.
Thank you.
Got a comment and a question. This is going to be a tough one, so fasten your seatbelt. I had a friend who graduated near the top of the class in CPA nationwide, and he ran the numbers, and there's a lot of missing money that the government has not been accounting for, and he was shocked, and he expressed that information to me, and that got my interest, and I wonder, could it be that there's something that they're able to see the future? I mean, is time travel really possible to where they know there's problems coming down the road, and that's why they're neglecting the infrastructure in this country, and people are doing all these weird things with FEMA camps and underground bunkers, or is it just my imagination? Over.
Yeah, great question, and thank you for that. Dr. Salla.
Well, there is technology that has been developed so that the intelligence community can actually look into future possibilities. This is called the chronovisor technology, and it began in the 1950s. There was an two Italian priests who used Gregorian chanting, and they were able to discover that by modifying certain technology that they had developed for monitoring Gregorian chanting, they could look into the future. So this was a technology that was dubbed the chronovisor, and that this was eventually handed over to the CIA in the 1960s, and the CIA then began basically using this technology to spy into the future to see all kinds of future possibilities. So this was something that the CIA used for a whole range of purposes, but one would be to kind of be able to raise the kinds of money that you would need to fund all of these massive black projects, because the CIA it was created in 1947, but in 1949 you had the CIA Act passed, which gave the CIA the unique ability amongst all federal bureaucracies to be able to spend money without regard to U.S. congressional legislation or any kind of regulation. In other words, the CIA has the congressionally approved mandate to launder money. And that was because the CIA was set up as an organization that would help fund these black projects that the military industrial complex knew was going to be needed, so that they could really take advantage of the kind of information that they had gotten about what had been developed in Nazi Germany and what they had received from flying saucer crashes and so forth.
Oh, I know what I wanted to ask you is Bill Tompkins and other whistleblowers like him, and Corey. There's a long list of whistleblowers that have come forward. How is Bill still alive? You know, he's 94. He's, it seems like, would he be a martyr? You know what I mean? If he was silenced in any way, does that just validate where he is coming from? The same thing with Corey Goode or any of the other whistleblowers that David Wilcock or Kerry Cassidy has brought forward. How are they allowed to continue to speak?
Well, this is what makes Bill Tompkins unique, is that he is not a whistleblower. He has been given sanction by the Navy leadership to move forward with his disclosures. In 2001, he approached a Rear Admiral, Admiral Hugh Webster, who gave him the green card to reveal everything that he knew. So this is on the back cover of his book, Selected by Extraterrestrials. Mm-hmm. And so you basically have the covert Navy that is fully aware of all of this, giving Bill Tompkins carte blanche to reveal everything. And Bill Tompkins is still active. And there are things he has shown Bob Woods and myself that has not been revealed yet, or that he has not disclosed yet, that show that he is still very active. He still has a security clearance, and this very weekend he is attending the premiere at the annual Navy confab between the Navy and the aerospace industry called Navy West 2017 that is being held in San Diego. So that's where all of the major aerospace companies show their latest, their most advanced aerospace programs and their weapon systems, and they try and get the Navy to sign on. Now, that is what is conventionally known about the Navy West meetings, but there is also the covert aspect of those meetings where they actually run the secret space programs, and Bill Tompkins is invited. He was invited last year, and he's going again this year. So he is not a whistleblower. He's been green-lighted to reveal everything, and he's really under the protection of the Navy.
I think he's also found the fountain of youth. I'm just letting you know that his mind, it's like he's 35 years old. How do you explain that? He is completely together. at his age?
I think he just loves what he's doing. He has always had this really incredible ability to make things happen throughout his entire life. He's always been at the vanguard of what is going on, whether he's working for the Navy, whether he's working for an aircraft company, whether he's working in private industry. He's always been at the vanguard just because, and he says it, that he is, he describes it at length in his book, but he's a contactee. He is someone that has been in telepathic communication with Nordic extraterrestrials from the time he began working for the Navy. That he gets telepathic messages from them, and that helps him do the things that he does. And in fact, this is why the Navy recognized him as so important, because they knew that he was working with the Nordics. Because this is, I discuss this a lot more in the book that's coming out. The Navy has had this covert alliance with the Nordic extraterrestrials since the Second World War, because, as I said, during the LA air raid, the Nordics gifted the Army, Air Force, and the Navy with 2 of its craft, because they wanted the Navy and the Army, Air Force to get up to speed on these advanced technologies because they needed to catch up to what the Nazis were doing. And ever since that time, the Navy has continued to help these Nordic extraterrestrials have been continuing to help the Navy in particular in its development of a secret space program. And in the 1980s, that's when that all came to fruition, with the Navy deploying its first battle groups in deep space.
I want to stay on this subject a little bit. And before I continue, when is the book due out? Did you say March 1st?
That's right, March 1st. So we're just about 10 days out.
Yeah, 10 days out. Okay.
It'll be out on Kindle. The ebook will be out on Kindle, and the print book will probably be just a week after that.
Amazon, your website, and so forth. Everybody can just go get it now and pre-order.
That's right. They can go to Amazon or my website, and they can pre-order the Kindle edition. And the print edition they can order from my website, and that'll be up on Amazon early March, the print edition.
Okay, so I want to discuss this just a little bit, and I just got another text that came in. Are there any ties between Antarctica and Russia?
Oh, yes, definitely. Russia is a major player. Russia has a base at Lake Vostok, just near Lake Vostok, and at the bottom, Lake Vostok is, I can't remember exactly whether it's 1 or 2 miles, but it's under a lot of ice, and it's an area of around at least 50 miles long in diameter, and has this very large magnetic anomaly, which is suggestive of a city. And so the Russians, through their base, through their Vostok base, have been studying what's down there in Lake Vostok for a long time, and they've been able to drill all the way down there. So, whether this is directly related to the excavations Corey has been discussing, I'm not sure, but certainly the Russians are very, very familiar with the secrets of Antarctica. They have their own research bases digging down deep into Antarctica to find these ancient outposts under the ice there. So the Russians are working at Lake Vostok. The US is doing similar things elsewhere on the Antarctic continent.
Now, with Lake Vostok, I've been waiting, like all of us, right, to get an announcement out of there. But one of the coolest things, Dr. Salla, an alien and underwater city, all of that is cool. But this is the other part. it has been sealed off for millions of years. So we have unaffected life, right? That has not been affected. There could be species there that have been extinct, right, forever. And we've been waiting for these announcements. Why do you think that Russia hasn't? Are they keeping this information to themselves? Certainly they know. They've been drilling. They've gotten down there, right? They've gotten there. It's, 2.2 miles through the ice?
Yes, it's a long way down there. They've been able to drill down there. I think the reason they haven't announced anything yet is, one, because they're still studying it, because from different sources, what we know is that these technologies that are down there are incredibly advanced, and it's not so easy to get to understand exactly what they're for. That there's a lot of research that has to go into understanding these. It's kind of like almost like temple-like structures down there, where you have different chambers, where you go into one chamber and it's not straightforward where you just open up a door and go in. There's kind of like, hidden messages. It's almost like in the Aliens movie, the Predator movies, where you have to kind of like unlock the secrets to kind of access different parts of these complexes down there. So I think that's one level of the problem the Russians are trying to understand, as is the US and other nations involved. The second level of it is that the Russians understand the importance of coordinating with the other major nations on this issue, because even though the Cold War on one level was very serious and very dangerous, and that is in terms of the people who had their fingers on the trigger for the nuclear weapons. At another level, in terms of the covert programs, there's been a lot of cooperation between the Americans, the British, the French, the Russians, the Chinese, and so they understand the need to coordinate in moving forward with releasing this information to the world, that no one nation will do it on its own, simply because there could be there's a lot of risks involved in that, kind of like divide and conquer. And so the nations of the world understand that it's important to coordinate. And so that's where the United Nations come in. And I think that's probably why when the information about Antarctica starts to come out, the United Nations is probably going to play a very critical role.
Do you think Russia would come forward about disclosure before the United States, or do you think that it would be something internally coordinated?
I think it's kind of a push-pull type situation where the Russians do push the envelope in terms of getting information out. I mean, there have been a number of politicians in Russia. Probably one of the more famous cases was the one where there was a hot microphone incident with the Russian Prime Minister Dmitry Medvedev, who said in this hot mic incident that all Russian presidents get two files when they begin their term of office. One file has the nuclear secrets, and the other file deals with extraterrestrials living amongst us and the agencies that are set up to monitor all of this information. And so this was something that was done deliberately. It wasn't an accident. And there have been other ways in which the Russians have been pushing the envelope, trying to get the information out there. But the US has been really kind of holding things up. And this is where there's a possibility now with this new administration where things might open up a little bit more and more information can start getting out. That's certainly what we're hoping. But the Russians definitely have been at the lead in getting information out. But at the end of the day, I think the Russians will seek to cooperate and seek to do it in a coordinated fashion through the United Nations.
I'll never forget the newscaster's face when he said that, right? and my brother-in-law, Russian, brought me in the house. You've got to see this video. You've got to see this video. Right when it happened. And I watched it probably 10 times over and over again. It was remarkable. I think what he said was, we get two briefcases. And one briefcase has the nuclear codes. The other one has everything you want to know about ET, and we're all, and everybody gets it. It was a remarkable thing to see. Now, I want to get back to your book really quick. When it comes to the SSP and the United States Navy's secret space program, is that program in place for offensive capabilities? Is it there for defensive capabilities? What are we building it for? Or is it for exploration and contact?
It really is a program. Just the name itself is very suggestive. Solar Warden. Its job is to kind of intercept any craft coming into our solar system. It was set up for that particular assignment, so that any extraterrestrial craft that comes into our solar system, the Solar Warden craft, their responsibility is to intercept and to basically interview, who they are, why they're here. As far as the older programs, like the German program, which is known as the Dark Fleet, or the corporate program, the Interplanetary Corporate Conglomerate, the Solar Warden program traditionally has just kind of kept a hands-off approach on these things. But if you have spacecraft coming in from some other extraterrestrial civilization that is new to our region of space, the Solar Warden program intercept them, and they do have combat capabilities. So they could certainly get involved in hostilities if they need to. They are really the space equivalent to a modern ocean-going naval battle group. So you have your naval battle groups with aircraft carriers, cruisers, destroyers, transports, and so forth. In space, you have the same thing. You have space carriers, space cruisers, space destroyers, transports, and so forth. So these do have offensive capabilities in deep space. But the Navy's jurisdiction is deep space. It has nothing to do with near-Earth operations. That responsibility falls to the U.S. Air Force's space program and the National Reconnaissance Office, which is a less developed space program, and that is something that, I'm happy to talk more at length about that.
Yeah, and we should. We may even go to a little bit of overtime tonight, and I appreciate that. You are... I'll just let everybody know you're over in Hawaii, so you got a 3 or 4 hour jump on us. You're fresh right now, as opposed to it's 9:30 here in Los Angeles. Let me ask you this. I think it's all very easy for us to wrap our mind around how these programs are paid for. We are missing trillions and trillions of dollars, right? It's just gone. And that money is spent somewhere on black projects. That I can understand. But how are they, and where are they built, and how do they get the Solar Warden craft off planet? I mean, how without anybody seeing it?
Well, the Solar Warden craft were built in these enormous underground facilities in Utah, near the Wasatch Mountains, near Salt Lake City. And there's, of course, these massive military facilities there, the Dugway Proving Grounds, that are used by various branches of the military. And it's in these vast underground bases that they've been able to build facilities for constructing these massive kilometer-long space carriers and space cruisers and destroyers. And according to Bill Tompkins, that these are assembled using a modular construction process, which is how today modern aircraft carriers and modern submarines are built using this modular construction process. So they could, for example, the latest Ford class aircraft carriers are built, and these are several hundred yards long. Well, they're built using these modular construction techniques. Well, once you've mastered that engineering construction process, it doesn't really matter if it's 100 yards long, 500 yards long, or 5 miles long. The principle is the same. You just assemble the various compartments, and then you kind of put them together in some vast assembly facility. And once you've put them together, then you're able to kind of like just raise these craft out of the facilities, and off they go to do their thing.
And is there some kind of stealth technology involved where we, you and I, right, the popular, we don't see them leave the planet, but then you also have Russia, China, Australia, different countries, Great Britain, with extensive radar and tracking capabilities all around the world too as well, that don't see these leaving, or do they? And are they aware of Solar Warden?
Well, I think different nations are in different aspects of this. That I think you have different tiers of nations, like you have, for example, the Five Eyes nations, like Australia, Canada, Britain, the United States, New Zealand, kind of forming the inner circle in terms of supplying personnel and collaborating very closely in engineering the various compartments to these craft. Because the thing is, when you have a modular construction process, you can contract out to different countries. So Canada can do the kind of like might do the engineering compartments. Australia might do the propulsion parts. Britain might do the kind of the command and control facility. And so when you have this kind of modular construction process, you can contract out to different groups, different nations, different aerospace companies to kind of do different aspects of this. And then it's all assembled in the one place. Now, once they're assembled, then it's all a matter of, how are these deployed without people being the wiser. Well, I think if you have these vast space battle groups being assembled in remote locations such as the Wasatch Mountains, then they can be kind of deployed at night, and essentially people wouldn't know what's going on. I mean, you have a very high security where no one is allowed anywhere near the vicinity of these facilities, and so people just wouldn't see them, being launched. And because they have advanced advanced propulsion systems, once they come out of those hangar facilities and come out to the surface, then they're able to move very, very quickly into the upper atmosphere and then into outer space.
Can you hang on for about another 10 minutes after the break?
Very happy to.
Oh, man. What a great conversation tonight, Dr. Salla. Thank you so much. Let's take a quick break right here. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. This is Fade to Black. Do a little overtime with Dr. Salla. Everybody stay right there. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
To my boy, Jimmy Church, on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will.
Balance of Nature's fruits and veggies.
I had gout in both my knees, and it's gone.
Well, I'm pretty stupid. I should have ordered it 15 years ago. Best thing I ever got in my... It's the most effective product that I've ever bought in my life.
He had eczema on his hand, and it cracked for years. Mm-hmm. He did anything from doctor, every cream, everything. And 3 months on the veggies and fruit, it was gone.
They're just awesome. They keep asking me, what am I doing? I told them what I did with my cholesterol. I had the blood test, right? And it went down 100 points. 262, now it's 162. Everything is just perfect.
Call now to find out how to get your free month's supply of Balance of Nature. Call 800-2468-751. That's 800-2468-751. Call now, 800-2468-751. Or go online to balanceofnature.com.
Use promo code TSL.
Would odors, mold, and mildew describe your basement or crawl space? It doesn't have to be that way. Transform them into a fresh, healthy, usable one with the technologically advanced Wave moisture control units. The computerized operation maximizes moisture control and also expels harmful radon, combustion gases, and numerous other pollutants. Dehumidifiers are old technology that do nothing for air quality and waste energy. Wave units are intelligent, self-monitoring, do not need maintenance, and will save you hundreds in electricity. Wave units are still running effectively over 15 years. They've been tested and installed in public and military housing and by property managers nationwide. Buy a unit now, and if your home is not fresher and drier, you can return it for a full refund for up to 12 months. What have you got to lose? Call now. 1-888-618-WAVE. 1-888-618-WAVE. Or visit mydryhome.com. That's mydryhome.com.
Wave Home Solutions for a healthy, comfortable home.
What's up, Fadernauts? Studio Dome loves Fade to Black and the F2B audience so much that they have put together the ultimate stereo Bluetooth system. They've done it just for you. Man, check this out. The Studio Dome SBB2 stereo system is here. It's featuring two Studio Boombox 2 SBB2 wireless Bluetooth speakers, packed in its own custom hardshell case. This Studio Dome system features the very latest in stereo Bluetooth technology. The two full-range boomboxes are in true wireless stereo. You've got to hear this. It's amazing. It's just $129, and use the promo code JCRTWS, and you'll also get free shipping. It's simple. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com, click on the Studio Dome banner. Go Beckley Teppy.
This is Kristen, Erica, Brittany, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
It's not a lifestyle we chose. We were born this way. KGRARadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
Ah, yes, Fade to Black. Just watching the chat room. It's already rolled past me. I don't know who said it, but somebody said, it's, Jimmy gets cranky. I'm scared to call in. Yeah, that's right. It is my show, and I can be cranky if I want. Isn't that right, Dr. Salla? Right?
I think you're doing great.
No, I'm just messing around. It just like, this is my show, right? Is Disclosure ET's show, in that are they controlling disclosure and when it's going to happen? It's not up to us, and it's not up to the government, is it? It's an ET thing. When they are ready for us, then it'll happen.
Well, I think we know that there's some ET groups that don't want disclosure to happen, and they have been doing various things to prevent that. And as we discussed earlier, even the United Nations Secretary General was abducted and basically given the riot, told not to kind of move forward with any kind of disclosure plan. So yes, some groups are against it, but other groups are for it. I mean, as I was saying, the Nordic extraterrestrials, these human-looking groups, they are for it. So as to who really is driving this, I think it ultimately comes down to the mass consciousness. It ultimately comes down to what we collectively as a species choose to manifest as our future reality. And I think this is why it's so exciting that the information about the secret space programs that we've all been working in our respective ways to kind of put out there, it seems to be embraced by more and more people. And I think this is really going to really drive the process forward, because as more and more people get up to speed with the whole kind of full disclosure secret space program narrative that has been coming from Corey, Bill Tompkins, Dave Wilcock, yourself, myself, and what others are putting out there, that I think the mass consciousness starts to kind of take all this in, and then eventually it's going to be that hundredth monkey effect kicking in, and all of a sudden everyone will know that, yeah, there's a secret space program, and yeah, there's different ET groups, and yeah, the Nazis kind of like built things in Antarctica. Yeah, we know all this. Why is the government hiding this from us?
Yeah,
It's it'll be something like that.
No, you're exactly right, and I'll tell you why. The all the way from the 50s and all of those great flying saucer B movies, right, which I love to this day. They're like my favorite. But today in Hollywood, Michael, as you know, if you want a successful film, something that's going to guarantee a return on investment, alien invasion, right? E.T., right? That's what you go and do. And we are so acclimated to that idea. Not only our generation, but our kids, the generation below us. E.T. to them is like, whatever, right? They get it. They're fully aware that we are not alone in the universe. And so the old reports and the old adage that we couldn't handle it, the anarchy in the streets and the collapse of religion and financial markets, and it's all going to come crashing down on us if we find this out. It's not that kind of party today, is it? We can handle the truth.
I think that, yeah, soft disclosure has been going on for 60 years now, since those movies began in the 50s, and the sci-fi shows. I mean, you've got so many sci-fi shows, Star Trek, Battlestar Galactica, and Stargate SG-1, and so many of these series that have acclimated people. I mean, on the one hand, you've got the movies, but on the other hand, the series, I think they're the ones that have the deeper impact on people. Star Trek and Stargate SG-1, all of these series, people really kind of get a lot of soft disclosure through that. And I think that, yeah, you're exactly right, that the younger people, the young generation, that they are ready for this, and they can just kind of shift gear really, really quickly and just jump into this. But the older generation, yeah, like the professionals, the professional scientists and the engineers and the academics that are in there kind of like, that have been doing their work for 20, 30 years, they're the ones that are going to have the hardest time, because their world paradigm is going to collapse, and they're going to have a great difficulty in adjusting.
Yeah, and there's another fascinating aspect to this. I'm going to throw this out there at you. 405 freeway here in Los Angeles, right? You've been on it. You know what that's about, right? It's the most insane freeway on planet Earth. E.T. comes during rush hour and lands on the 405 freeway and blocks traffic. You're going to have about 15 minutes of fascination. Wow, check it out, E.T. You're going to have some video, right? You're going to have some cell phone cameras. And then after that, after the 15 minutes of fame is over, it's going to be somebody yelling out the car window, get that thing off of the freeway, right? That's what it's. I think that we can handle it. I really do. I don't think there's going to be pandemonium. I really firmly believe that.
You're exactly right. I think we have been so prepared through all of these soft disclosure initiatives, and then we've got all of the whistleblower testimonies and this kind of sanctioned disclosure testimonies that have come forward, that the information is out there, and anyone that's curious, you can just do a Google and you have the information right there. And the internet really is a kind of physical manifestation of the collective unconsciousness. So if it's on Google, if it's on the internet, then it's right there in front of people's minds. They just have to kind of like have something trigger that interest, and it can be anything that a friend says or an event that they see, maybe on the freeway, and they're ready for it.
I think some people are a little bit surprised in my take on this, but if you really, really, really think about it, we're ready. You know, the sensationalism, this isn't going to be something that is going to drag on for months and months, and people, wrecking their cars and quitting their jobs and losing their minds. No, I think that we would be very relieved to get this past us, and move on and know that we have friends in the universe, and now let's go and get something else done here, and let's work towards something. That's where I think we are consciously throughout the world.
Well, I think if all things were even, then that would definitely be the case, that the majority of people are ready and they would lap this up. The big question here, of course, is how is the mainstream media going to play this up? Are they going to play it up in terms this is a wonderful transformative thing, or are they going to play it up that the extraterrestrials are here to kind of like come and kind of like take us over, or it's an alien invasion? The thing is, the mass media and who controls the mass media, they're going to have a big impact in how this plays out. And so hopefully what will happen is that the mass media, that the journalists, the professional journalists involved in that, their eyes are going to open up to the truth, and they're going to start kind of like putting out genuine information rather than the kind of false narratives that they've been doing for a long time.
I want to thank you for coming on tonight, doing a little overtime with us. Absolutely fascinating conversation, and it always is. When the new book comes out, I want to get you back on. I want to read it and then go deep there. But for everybody else, what's the best way to read your blog and get a hold of you?
They just go to exopolitics.org. That's exopolitics.org, and I have all my articles there, so they can read them for free on the site, and then links to the books and so forth. So thanks, Jimmy, for having me on the show. Really wonderful you do. So I look forward to seeing you at Contact in the Desert.
Oh, that's right. Whoa. I can't let you get out of here that easily. What are you going to speak about at Contact in the Desert this year?
Definitely going to be talking about the Navy's secret alliance with these Nordic extraterrestrials, and for the workshop, I haven't quite thought about that yet, but definitely it's going to have something to do with the secret space program, some aspect of it, maybe Antarctica, just because so much of the information that's coming out now, I think, is really intriguing, and like the CIA just has digitized all of their files, and now we can start reading about the CIA's remote viewing of places like Mars, and how does that tie into Antarctica? So I may do something along the lines of Antarctica and the Mars connection.
I can't wait. Contact in the Desert is such an extraordinary event. I look forward to hanging out with you, and you can come hang out with the Fader Knots, and we'll definitely knock a couple of back together, okay? And until then, safe travels, and we'll see you when you come over from the islands.
Okay, aloha.
Thank you so much. Dr. Michael Salla, exopolitics.org. It's very simple. The links are over at jimmychurchradio.com. I'm going to take a quick break right here. I'll get back and discuss some of the news that you know nothing about. Dr. Michael E. Just go to jimmychurchradio.com. Click on his links right there. I'll be right back.
You're listening to Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Fade to Black will now pause for alien identification.
The station that talks the net. KGRA Radio.
When you take the beans from Central America with dashes of Indonesian and African mixed in and then roasted to the dark side of Fade to Black, you create the ultimate brew of fringe. Introducing the Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Yes, River Moon's darkest customized roast was created for the love of Fade to Black. The alchemy of masterful roasting and smoking the beans is in every sip of this full-bodied dark Java. I need my coffee dark, deep, with distinct bittersweet chocolate highlights, just like the bunker. Leaning further into the darkness of the roast is Fade to Black blend from River Moon Coffee. Just click on the banner at jimmychurchradio.com and use the promo code F2BBLEND for 15% off of your order today. Go Beckley Teppy.
Hi, folks. In a world of GMO, genetically modified organisms, that is, chemicals, processed foods, and a healthcare system that's unraveling like a cheap suit, it's time to prepare. God created herbs, and herbs help man. Our body can heal itself, just sometimes we need assistance. You need some help? GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Our mild detox is quite powerful with its unique blend of 8 different herbs. And if you're looking for more, our non-GMO supplements will help you with different needs you might have. Health should be a top priority. Take care of your health naturally. Log on to GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Give your body a treat. Let the herbs do their thing naturally. Read all the testimonies on the website, GetTheTea.com. That's GetTheTea.com. Sickness and viruses are like intruders, and herbs are like warriors. Let the tea work for you. That's GetTheTea.com.
9 out of 10 geneticists agree.
Fade to Black is not your father's radio show on the Game Changer Radio Network and KGRA, The Planet.
Hi, this is Chase Kletsky with Fate Magazine Radio, and you're listening to Jimmy Church and Fade to Black on the Game Changer Network and the KGRA digital broadcast station, where the Fade or Nots rock.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Manson. You're listening to Jimmy Church Radio.
Wow, what a great conversation tonight. I got to tell you. I walk away from a night like this where, you know, you sit and you talk with Dr. Salla, and the conversation is organic and it just goes to where it needs to go. And I just feel enlightened. I feel like I'm in the right place right now. And if I do, that means you do. Man, wow. Man, I just feel like I just did a bunch of olive leaf extract and some pine bark, which I did actually before the show, and my moringa. You gotta love GetTheTea.com. All right. Oh, and you know, I do want to say this really quick because I talk about Get the Tea all the time, but what got me through, well, you know, this past week, because I lost my voice, I was, Rita and I burned the candle on both ends. We took each other to a deep, dark place as far as physically goes that I didn't think we would come back from. I'm going to say this now to everybody. Supplements, supplements, supplements. And vitamin C. Vitamin C is the cure of all your ills. My goodness gracious. Got us through it. I feel great. I really do. Rita and I went to the edge, man. We went to the edge. We took a peek. We did. Man. But we did it for all of you. We love the show. We love this audience. And it's just been absolutely amazing. All right. Now, are you ready? Okay. This just in from the Alarming Ideas Bureau. That's right. The Alarming Ideas Bureau, the AIB. Officials in the city of Dubai have announced that the world's first passenger drone air taxis will begin commercial flights in a couple of months. That's right. This summer in Dubai. I announced this like 3 or 4 months ago on the show. Attentive listeners, you may remember that passenger drone demo model that flipped everybody out. Remember? And I talked about this. The EHang 184, the PFV, the personal flying vehicle. EHang 184. It's basically a supersized quadcopter. It's a quad drone. And it's manufactured by a Chinese company, the same ones that make the Ghost line of drones. Well, at the World Government Summit this week, Dubai's Road and Transportation Authority declared that the city will begin offering aerial taxi service this summer using the EHang drone. I'm not making this up. This is real. According to reports out of Dubai and the Frankly Bananas promotional video, which I showed all of you guys, right? The flying taxi will have a range of about 40 to 50 kilometers, 25 to 30 miles, with 30 minutes of flight time on a single battery charge. The Dubai taxi can carry, are you ready? 220 pounds and a small suitcase. Well, that means I could do it without the suitcase, barely. But all you're going to do is you're going to take out your cell phone, just like ordering an Uber, order the drone taxi. It's going to come to where you are standing and land. You're going to punch in the address in your phone where you need to go. You're going to jump in and take off. Folks, this is real. 2 months. Two months. And I'm going to tell you right now, I'm totally cool with it. I'm totally cool with it. I would do it. You look at a drone. Drones are so... the software for a drone, the software for that, and the GPS, the way that it's so safe and so foolproof, it just makes perfect sense. Well, here we go, man. It is here. The flying cars are here. How many times have I talked about this on this show? Thank you, Mark Tarana. There it is, right there. The drone taxi. Look at that. Follow me on Twitter right now, @JChurchRadio. Bob, thank you for that. That gets a retweet. Look at that. Would you fly in that? I know you would. That thing ain't going to crash. That thing is cool. Man, it's cheap, too, by the way. All right. This announcement came out last week. It is big, big, big news. New Zealand sits atop a previously unknown continent, mostly submerged beneath the South Pacific, that should be recognized with the name Zealandia. Scientists announced this past Friday. Researchers say that Zealandia was a distinct geological entity and met all the criteria applied to Earth's 7 other continents. Elevation above the surrounding area, distinctive geology, a well-defined area, and a crust much thicker than that found on the ocean floor. In a paper published in the Geological Society of America's journal, GSA Today, they said Zealandia measured 5 million square kilometers, 1.9 million square miles, and was 94% underwater. The paper's author said that it only had 3 major landmasses, New Zealand's North and South Islands to the south and New Caledonia to the north. The scientists, mostly from the official New Zealand research body GNS Science, said that Zealandia was once part of the Gondwana supercontinent but broke away about 100 million years ago. Pretty incredible. Now, with everything that we talked about tonight, with Antarctica, right, and Atlantis, the search for Atlantis, the fact that we are having plate shifts, and that we know that this, even though this has only been talked about since the 1950s and 1960s, proven today, I get that. But we had another continent, and now it is official? Think about that for a second. It's a big deal. Well, also announced today, the Ancient One, also known as the Kennewick Man, was reburied early Saturday in the high desert of the Columbia Plateau, ending 20 years of legal battles and scientific study. That's right. Up in the high desert of the Columbia Plateau, more than 200 people gathered early this past Saturday to lay the Ancient One to rest, returning his 9,000-year-old remains to an undisclosed location not far from the Columbia River. Why? It's because scientists had argued that Kennewick Man was not an ancestor of the Columbia Plateau tribes. The tribes argued otherwise, but they were proved wrong. The scientists were proved wrong, and he was returned to where he came from. Also, returned to the tribes was a projectile point that had penetrated the Ancient One's right hip. Man, that is like my good news of the day. Kennewick Man is an Indian. Well, YouTube briefly went down for many users across parts of Europe earlier today, according to online outage reports, prompting panic in the streets. That's right. What do you do without YouTube? Disruption to the website felt in areas including Ireland, the UK, France, and Germany. The error message appeared on the YouTube site during its disruption, accompanied by that cartoon monkey with a hammer. And this is what it said. And there's more to this at the end. Sorry, something went wrong. A team of highly trained monkeys has been dispatched to deal with this situation. If you see them, send them this information as text. And then, screenshots to frighten them. The message read alongside a paragraph of code, and the title of which said 500 internal server error. And guess what? It happened to us in the bunker over the weekend. I couldn't believe it. YouTube went down, and I was supposed to be in bed, but I had to go and work, and I'm doing that, and I'm getting this 500 internal server error. So I call the company, the management company that handles our YouTube account, and the guy that manages our page immediately picked it up and goes, Jimmy, YouTube will be back in an hour. And I had to stare at that 500 internal server error actually it came back in about an hour. But that's what went down in Europe today. And I just saw it over the weekend. Maybe you did too. We got the advanced treatment. I don't know what's going on with YouTube, but certainly there are some errors. Now, tomorrow, several hundred activists protesting the Dakota Access Pipeline are under a court order to leave tomorrow. Protesters at the North Dakota camp, which is near the Missouri River, seem unfazed by the threats of arrest. But there's also spring flooding coming, and I think they're more concerned with that than they are with the feds. Tomorrow, they're supposed to leave. We will find out how this is going to resolve sometime tomorrow. This is Fade to Black. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Thank you to Dr. Michael E. Salla. What a conversation tonight. Tomorrow night, right here, it's Ouija night with Karen Dahlman. Fade to Black's executive producer is Rita Kamarian. Shows produced by Hilton J. Paul, Mark D. Kovar, LJ3, Renee Jonas. Thank you, Dennis. Thank you, Bob. Announcers are Steve Harder, Gene Vitoa, Mark D. Kovar. Fady Bidell. Webmaster is Drew the Geek. Music, Doug Aldrich. Intro, Spaceboy, spaceboymusic.com. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Game Changer Network. Syndication is KGRA, The Planet. This broadcast is owned and copyrighted 2016 by Fade to Black and the Game Changer Network. Cannot be rebroadcast, downloaded, copied, or used anywhere in the known universe without written permission from Fade to Black or the Game Changer Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. Follow me on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Until tomorrow night, everybody be safe. Go Beckley Tepe.